we have the capacity for a boundless renaissance. Ironically, we don't know yet what this actually means. With the unfolding boundary condition to the next glaciation cycle, a great beneficial resource comes to light on the horizon that the universe offers us as a compensation for the glaciation period. This great beneficial resource is located in the vast increase in galactic cosmic-ray flux that will be reaching the Earth when the Sun gets weaker and the heliosphere becomes weaker accordingly. The heliosphere attenuates cosmic-ray flux. The weak heliosphere attenuates less, giving us more of it, while we don't know yet how big this increase will be. It nevertheless promises to be highly beneficial for human cognitive development, as historic patterns indicate. Under present conditions, every one of us is being bombarded with 50,000 cosmic ray particles every single day. They typically pass right through our bottom, without colliding with anything, because the electric charge of the cosmic ray particles prevents collisions. However, as the particles pass through our body, they do have an effect, an electric effect, and this effect appears to be greater and more beneficial than we may realize. A fast-moving cosmic ray particle is electricity in motion. It creates a moving magnetic field. Even without touching anything, the moving magnetic field creates a secondary electric current in the surrounding tissue. The generated electric current, minute as it may be, appears to have a profound beneficial effect on our biological systems, which are all electrically operated. The evidence so far exists only in historic patterns. For example, the dawn of written languages that became a pivotal event in the development of civilization coincides with a period of cold climate that logically is a period of high cosmic ray flux. The same pattern holds true for all the great pivotal events, such as the dawn of Christianity and later the dawn of Islam, followed by the Golden Renaissance in Europe. Great cultural developments occurred during major cooling periods that logically correspond with periods of increased cosmic radiation. Another example is the building of the amazing temples of Khajuraho in the 950 to 1150 AD time frame. A whopping 80 great temples were created, all in a small area in less than 200 years, by a rich culture in northern India that had developed from 500 AD onward. This development period coincides with the time frame of a generally cold climate with corresponding high cosmic ray intensity. Still another example of this type is the building of the Taj Mahal that some researchers place into a much earlier time frame than is officially recognized, possibly the 1300 AD time frame, based on the carbon data of the wood that was used in the window frames. The pattern that we see here is remarkably consistent for all of these cases. Even closer to the present, a strong coincidence is evident. The big overturning that led to the Peace of Westphalia in 1648, which became the only peace treaty in modern history that left no one vanquished, which set the stage for the great cultural renaissance that followed, with many great geniuses emerging on the scene, was coincident with the Maunder minimum in solar activity that also caused the Little Ice Age. Here too, great cultural achievements were wrought that correspond with a period of higher levels of cosmic radiation. One of the greatest developments in this period was the development of the concept of the sovereign nation-state that started with the Mayflower Pilgrimage in 1620 and culminated into the American Declaration of Independence on July 4, 1776, which created the USA. While the historic pattern doesn't deliver empiric proof, which is not possible, it suggests, however, that the 20% increase in cosmic radiation that the Ulysses satellite has measured might start another increase in humanist cognitive power in our time, and that this process may have already begun. The process appears to have already begun also in the biological world. Theoretically, the increased cosmic ray flux should have an uplifting effect on plant growth. This too appears to be visible. I have noticed in our garden that almost all of our plants have begun to grow much more vigorously in recent years than they have ever before. This hosta, for example, that is shown here, has grown taller than our garden chair, and this in mid-May, long before it even begins to bloom. Some flowering trees too appear to have become more vigorous in their growth, while no evidence exists or is possible that the increased vigor is caused by increased cosmic ray flux. The potential that it hints at is highly significant for agriculture production, where such an increase would be extremely variable, if not critically significant, during the coming Ice Age glaciation cycle. It is interesting to note in this respect, by going back deeply into geologic history, that the tremendous development of the living processes on Earth that eventually, a long way down the line, culminated into the dawn of humanity, did not begin its leap forward until the epoch of the modern deep ice ages had begun, named the Pleistocene epoch, that gave the cognitive and biological development a tremendous boost. The only comparable deep cooling that appears to have occurred during the last 500 million years occurred around 450 million years ago, when the proliferation of life and its complexity on our planet unfolded in leaps and bounds. This interesting linkage between the past and the modern times seems to suggest that we, humanity, might not have come into existence if it hadn't been for the increased cosmic ray electric energy that became prevalent only during the modern Ice Age cycles and not before. The modern high cosmic ray flux epoch spanned the entire range of human history in what appears to have been an increasing fashion. It appears to have progressively powered the human development and enabled the development of the amazing complexity of our neurological system and its profound cognitive, even scientific capabilities. In this sense, we are the product of a profound systemic progression, and an active element of it with a near boundless potential. The long-term astrophysical cycles also indicate that the ongoing systemic progression will become increasingly more intense as the successive ice ages will become increasingly colder for the next 3 million years, based on the two overlapping, very long dynamic cycles as they reach their combined low point. Astrophysical evidence gleaned from ice core samples on Greenland suggests that the impact of increased cosmic ray flux had a much more dramatic impact on humanity's scientific development than society is presently allowed to imagine. in times of the historic cold climates that would correspond with increased cosmic ray flux. A powerful platform for scientific development has apparently been enabled that led to advanced discoveries of efficient principles for agriculture and the building of more powerful technologies. During these successive stages of cultural uplift, the discoveries were increased and the resulting technologies improved, to past the point at which the created scientific and technological power had enabled in society a breakout from the chokehold that ignorance had on the power of human living. The evidence suggests that science, aided by cosmic ray conditioning, has created a shock front that developed through successive increases in cognitive power. The resulting shock front then suddenly began pushing against empire and its war on humanity. The humanist breakout that resulted caused a tremendous worldwide population expansion from the breakout onward that nothing could restrain any longer, nor anything will ever be able to put back into the bottle again. The shockwave created a phase shift. For 600 years since the breakout began, the oligarchy of empire has struggled to hold its ground against the shock front that started ripping through the fabric of fascism, perpetual war, and perpetual stealing that empire depends on. This ripping action still continues, nor can the now increasing shock front be resisted. Resistance is futile. The power of the shock front is increasing with the now increasing cosmic nurturing of humanity that has already begun again. In the shadow of this increasingly powerful shock front, the entire strategic landscape of the world that none of us can likely fully fathom has no historic precedent that we could use as a reference point. We are in a boundary zone to an unprecedented world. Thus, while the shock front keeps on growing and empire keeps crying in its death agony, demanding the depopulation of the world, screaming with grotesque choruses of lies and convoluted lyrics, and imaginary apocalyptic tales, their cries and threats and promises of doom for the world are cries into the wind without avail. Against the now increasing shock front, resistance truly is futile to the extreme, both for empire and for society. A new wind is blowing. The current response by empire shouldn't surprise anyone, therefore. The masters of empire face a situation without hope for them. They understand the astrophysical reality that they try to hide from humanity. They understand its dynamics. They see the really big humanist shockwave already swelling up against them to the point that their games don't work anymore, and they are scared. And this is not something that is merely on the horizon. It is here, and they know it. It is unfolding. The transition state to the next glaciation cycle, or the new ice age as it is commonly called, is in progress at its beginning stage. They know resistance is futile, for which they have become desperate. NASA's Ulysses satellite has reported a 20% increase flux of high-energy electrons over the space of its 16-year mission. This discovery must have caused such a big shock throughout the Empire system already that back in 2008, the Ulysses satellite was subsequently turned off. For both Empire and humanity, the time has come to acknowledge that resistance to the unfolding shock front is indeed futile. It is hopeless to cling to traditions that have their foundation ripped away. The supersonic shock wave that the masters of empire feel the beginning of, and society still largely tends to ignore, is so powerful in the field of aircraft dynamics that it can rip an airplane apart if its design is such that the aircraft doesn't fly inside the shock front cone. In aircraft physics, the shock wave phenomenon supersedes all known laws of fluid dynamics that were the only applicable law recognized up to this point. Once an aircraft is pushed faster than the speed of sound, a new facet of reality unfolds that cannot be understood in terms of the concepts of the general fluid dynamics. A totally different world erupts at this point. The shock front of the jet car named Thrust SST, the moment it entered the supersonic arena, expanded hypersonically so fast that the entire shock front appeared instantly on both sides and moved abreast with the car at the speed of sound. This kind of new reality in dynamics is what the Ice Age transition is promising to humanity with numerous potentials. It will inspire us to create a new world and a new civilization with creative powers not yet realized, even while it poses some challenges along the way, such as the challenge to relocate most of the world's agriculture. While this may seem like a huge challenge, it can be easily met. Nevertheless, the transition period ahead also has some critical elements. In this transition, empire will vanish, and everything that is next to it. Just look at the shock front that is already hitting the fantasy threat of monetarist wealth. A shock front develops when an aircraft is pushed faster against an air mass than the air mass can flow out of the way. That's when higher-level principles take over. By these principles, the shocked air blows out perpendicularly. Empire will blow out in such a fashion. Money estates will blow out too, and whatever else is presently still called wealth and status, what is falsely called science, will blow out likewise. The widespread glaciation that will result with the astrophysical new ice age will most likely have the smallest effect in our changing world, in comparison with the high-powered development in our humanity that we will see, which we are about to get into from an already flying start. In this sense, we are the children of the ice ages of the Pleistocene epoch, the children of a systemic progression that we are contributing to with our own unfolding dynamics. This development epoch will likely increase for another 3 million years and level out until about 10 million years from now. No fiction writer has yet imagined the deep-reaching and powerful fundamental uplift this promises to bring about. The people who came out of the last ice age, who saw the beginning of this uplift, had built the Great Pyramids in Egypt, which researchers suggest may have been built as early as 12,800 years ago, contrary to official perceptions. These pyramids are the product of people of extremely advanced skills in geometry, astronomy, and mathematics that became lost during the interglacial cosmic-ray famine. The pyramids that the Egyptians had built 4,500 years ago didn't come anywhere close to matching the quality and design that is inherent in the great Giza pyramids. Today, society marvels at the ancients' achievement to the point that many suggest now that the pyramids couldn't have possibly been built by human beings in primitive times more than 4,000 years ago, so that many suggest now that the pyramids had been built by people from outer space. For the same reason, doubts are now spreading that suggest that humanity has never set foot on the moon either, that the entire Apollo project was mere theatrics, as they insist that this couldn't have possibly been done because such a feat, as they insist, is impossible to do. Instead of being trapped into this kind of decapitation of our self-perception as human beings, we should see in the pyramids an echo of ourselves as creators with a profound spirit, with a great protective power, and with a profound commitment to the universal welfare of all that may be termed universal love. These are the human qualities that the last ice age had nurtured and had developed into a type of renaissance that had enabled the construction of the gigantic pyramids that still stand today as monuments built in the shadow of the previous great ice age renaissance. All the previous wonders of the world are coming back into focus here as the new shock front is unfolding and greater things will become possible, such as putting an end to nuclear war and empire that demands war and depopulation. Humanity has tried in vain for millennia already to reach the goal to end empire. It failed for the lacking recognition of the needed principle for getting it done. Humanity has failed for centuries by not acknowledging itself as human beings, and this all the way to the modern times. In the 1980s, a vast strategic defense project had been proposed to intercept intercontinental missiles in space. The proposal was based on the premise that we do not have the power as human beings to live without war, so that war must be prevented physically. With this, we lied to ourselves once again. The strategic defense of humanity against the Ice Age incursion needs to be built on the opposite premise. It needs to be built on the premise that as human beings we have the power and the unity in our humanity to uplift the world into the greatest renaissance of all times, where the Ice Age has no sting for us. It needs to be built on the principle of the universal kiss, the Peace of Westphalia that ended 100 years of war in 1648. The universal kiss that fulfills the common aims of mankind towards building a brighter, secure future, brighter and more secure than any that has ever been aimed for, with the greatest challenge along the way to be overcome, is a kiss for the precious that humanity is. It is a kiss for what is lodged in all human hearts. The Ice Age challenge is of a type that will inspire the universal kiss that has so far been left out of all equations. For this reason we will succeed, powered by the universe itself, and so we will succeed in relegating fascism, war, empire, monetarism, looting and slavery into the trash can of history. This will happen as a secondary issue along the way. The shockwave is already moving. Wealth no longer inspires respect, but disgust for the thievery by which it was stolen from the living of humanity. A new type of geometry is unfolding, in which respect is inspired by achievements for a common, richer world in the flow of the universal kiss. In this amazing context, our renewed Ice Age Renaissance that we have the potential to meet and already seeing the beginning of, will not be seen as something extraordinary and miraculous in future ages, as it seems now, but will be seen as commonplace and as natural as breathing the air. Shouldn't this also be the way in which we face the challenges right before us now? We will likely find that as we gain our liberty from the prison cave of decapitated science and step into the Renaissance, that we will do so joyously, with a song on the lips, as we watch the old world fade out of sight.